Hello audience, this is Khawaja Hammad Akbar and we have with us Mr. Andrew Small from German Marshall Fund of the United States. And he is here in Pakistan standing with me in Islamabad at Islamabad Security Dialogue organized by National Security Division Islamabad under the Prime Minister Office of Pakistan. So Mr. Andrew, how have you been interacting here in Pakistan and how do you find the conference here in Pakistan?
This is an extremely interesting conference. It's quite a different venture from a lot of the conferences. I come to Pakistan regularly for these sorts of events, but this I think has been put together on a very interactive format, very interesting kind of selection of guests. It's been very cleverly done. I've enjoyed it a lot.
On 1st of April, you spoke here and in the session that was entitled as Leveraging Geoeconomics Through Growth and connectivity. You spoke very well, and in this year, let me ask you a question, that Pakistan releases a national security policy and shows a posture of converting or adopting a policy from geostrategic to geoeconomics. How you see that initiative and what are your comments there?
I mean, I think it's the right decision. As I said yesterday, it's, as the National Security Advisor and others have noted, an exceptionally difficult time to be trying to make a success of this. I think there's no question. As I mentioned in some of the remarks yesterday, you have a combination of the regional picture being complex, two sanctioned neighbors, India relationship being still what it is, China in a period where there's a bit of a slowdown with the Belt and Road and somewhat reflected in CPEC as well, and then a global picture as a result of the situation in Ukraine, the Russian invasion, which is leading to huge kind of rebalancing of globalization, building, I think, on what we saw during COVID, what we saw with the US-China trade war, the old model that's been there for a long time. A lot of companies, a lot of governments are really rethinking that, and so it means the kind of version of globalization as the trend of the future and a sort of inevitable force in the world. I think people are looking at that through a much more political prism, through a much more security-centered prism, and so it means you're seeing value chains being revisited, reshoring, nearshoring, friendshoring. It's a challenging time, therefore, to be trying to effect a switch towards a kind of geo-economically rooted approach. But doesn't mean it's not necessary. I mean, this is still the foundations of national security in the end, and I think it's a really critical switch if Pakistan can pull it off, and I think there are some opportunities there as well in this new context, but one just has to be very focused on what they are amid all these challenges.
National Security Advisor Dr. Mohit Yusuf yesterday and today stressed on the issue that Pakistan on its western borders to have two internationally sanctioned countries, and on the right side it has India, which we have strained relations from almost decades. So this is the geographical location, and this particular phenomena is a challenge for Pakistan. How you see this challenge, and what would you like to convey as a message to Pakistan? How should Pakistan position itself in this scenario?
Well, I mean, first there's the regional piece of this, which means that securing a framework in Afghanistan, it's not just Afghanistan being under sanction, it's the entire security picture and the difficulties next door. Figuring out a secure long-term political settlement in Afghanistan then becomes quite critical to connectivity in the region, including for Central Asia, of course, as well. So the Afghanistan piece of it looms quite large for whether this vision can be realized. Of course, there is the perennial question, as the Army Chief and others also talked about today, of what is possible with India in the end. And it will make a difference. I mean, of course, the situation now is frozen when it comes to certain kinds of economic interaction on the scale that would make a difference. But I think the declared intent of getting beyond that over time matters. And so that's also going to be an important element. But I mean, there's still going to be a huge degree to which, if Pakistan is also maritime facing, a lot of this is going to be about how far Pakistan's able to take advantage of some of the impetus that we're seeing towards diversification, rebalancing taking place in the world, including in some cases away from China. It's been a very China-centered globalization in the last period of time. China has itself been pushing beyond with the Belt and Road, but I think you're going to see a lot more impetus for countries to rebalance from these kind of single points of dependency to reorientate towards a kind of more diffuse range of markets, supply hubs and things. Pakistan needs to position itself to be a part of that. This does mean that all of the questions that we've been discussing about bloc politics, global alignments, it will make a big difference if Pakistan is able to operate between these different spheres rather than being excessively tied to one bloc. And so I think the messages on that today were also extremely important to hear.
Pakistan's national message is we are not in the bloc politics, and we will not get ourselves in the mess of siding with any power, and we'll try to balance our posture. Thank you, Mr. Andrew, for your time, and it's a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure talking to you too. Thank you.
Thank you.